So you want to see Scott Adams, the guy who popularized, at least in political discussions, the idea of cognitive dissonance, where when your worldview or belief system is contradicted, rather than changing your mind, you simply hallucinate to get away from the discomfort that you feel. You want to see Scott Adams hallucinate? Look at this tweet. Vox Day highlighted it on December 1st, 2021. Scott Adams says, "Note to people who are bad at critical thinking, if we someday learn that getting the V was a huge mistake, please don't tell me you knew all along. You are guessing just like the rest of us. Someone will guess right." Okay, so let's go back a little bit and see the reason for this discomfort, because Scott Adams has been very pro-V and in fact has used his powers of persuasion to change people's mind. Let's look at this example. So here we are on episode 1495, September 10th, 2021. I'm going to try and jump around a little bit because good God does he take a long time to get to the point. But he starts with an interesting disclaimer.
Give you my warning once again. I said it in the title. If you don't want to be convinced to get vaccinated, turn this off right now.
Turn it off. He's going to change your mind.
And it's not reverse psychology.
With magic.
It's not a trick. If you don't want to be accidentally convinced to get vaccinated.
Oh, don't worry.
Because that might happen. I'm not going to do it intentionally.
I'm just going to make a whole podcast about it.
Do that.
Oh, you're a good man.
Yeah, so with my blessing, those of you who don't want to be part of this, please sign off.
Thanks for your blessing.
And come back tomorrow.
No.
Come back tomorrow.
This was it.
But for those of you who stay, I'm going to blow your head right off.
I bet.
For some of you. Okay? Now, let me start with this. If I ask you this question, most of you are reasonable people, and I know that you made your decisions about vaccinations or not based on reason and risk, and you thought it through. Would you agree that all of you, no matter which decision you came by, would you agree with the statement that you thought it through? In the comments, can you please confirm that? You thought it through, right?
No, I'm completely spontaneous.
You thought it through.
All of my decisions are spontaneous all the time.
Now, second question.
This is called a yes ladder.
If I were to alter, and you accepted it, one of your biggest assumptions.
Oh, yeah?
Could it change your opinion?
No,
now, I haven't told you what the assumption is yet, right?
Evidence never
so you can hold on that
whatsoever.
But if I were to change your most important assumption, could it change your opinion?
Repeat yourself.
Just yes or no.
5 more times,
your assumptions,
please.
And you agree with that change, you go, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Okay,
if I could do that, just one assumption.
4 times he said the same.
I'm not going to give you any new data. No data will be presented.
Give me one more. Give me 5 times.
I'm just going to change one assumption.
There we go, 5.
And if that big assumption was central to your decision, could you...
I'm sorry, he's just repeated himself 5 times. If I do that, unsubscribe and turn me off. Good Lord, dude, get to the point.
Change your mind. Do you know what I'm doing to you right now?
Manipulating me. Oh, crap.
All right, I just primed you. So I made you commit to a change in assumption would change your opinion.
You had me say yes to things that anybody would say yes to. Is the sky blue? Yes. Do you want to buy a used car?
If I had not done that, it probably wouldn't. Because confirmation bias would kick in.
Yep.
And even if I successfully changed your assumption, you would just move to a different required, as most of you know.
Oh, here we go.
But I think I will add a new understanding in a minute. We'll get to it, okay?
It took forever.
There are a number of vaccinations that are already required, as most of you know. If you're a kid in the United States and you want to go to school, the things you have to get would be included by 7th grade. You got to get tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis, boost.
By the way, it's very, very easy to get around all of these, but he just lists a bunch of childhood shots that you have to get, okay? And your point being?
To go to school. Now, apparently there are
Took him a full minute of blabbing to get that little 30-second blib out. Just by the by, if you watch this guy.
There are people who find workarounds that they don't have to get vaccinated. I heard there are 800,000
It's very
unvaccinated
very
people in the
easy
country
to
who don't even have these vaccinations. So I guess you can get around it, but that's the situation. Now, here's your assumption.
Yep.
Speak.
The big assumption that he's going to change, from the beginning. I'm going to change the one assumption, and you're a reasonable person, and all that.
Now to the people who have decided not to get vaccinated.
Because he's arguing you should.
Is one of your assumptions that these other vaccinations, and by the way, if you're anti-vax in general, this has nothing to do with you. If you're anti-vax...
Why do you have to repeat yourself 5 times every time you make a statement?
For all vaccinations, I'm not even talking to you. Nothing I say will be...
Yeah, you said it twice.
...relevant to you. If you've said no vaccinations...
3 times on this one point.
Have a nice day. You don't want...
You want to say it again? Go for 4.
I'll watch the rest of this. There's no point in it.
Oh, there it is.
If you thought the childhood vaccinations are okay because they've been around so long that the side effects are well understood, and the COVID vaccinations are newer.
Yes.
So let's say your biggest reason for not getting vaccinated is that the traditional vaccinations have been around long enough that we would see all of the side effects and we'd have a really good understanding of the long-term risks.
Okay, speed up.
Because how can you possibly know the long-term risks of a vaccination that just came out this year? It's not possible, right?
1 year, yes.
So you've got the vaccination that comes out this year with completely unknown long-term risks. Would you agree? How many would agree with me, the statement that the...
Why? Are we going to say, do you agree with me 5 times again?
The COVID vaccinations have unknown long-term risk. Everybody agree? We couldn't possibly know it. You can't know the future, right? Now, how many would agree with the next statement that we do know the long-term risks of the childhood vaccinations? Agree or disagree? We do know the long-term risks of the childhood vaccinations.
We know they're not catastrophic.
Agreed. Disagree? Why would you disagree with that? Not really? Not really. They've been around for decades. What do you mean? Somebody says yes, yes. So I'm saying your answer is sure, we know the risk. Now, clearly we would recognize, if any of these long-term kid vaccinations, if they were giving long-term problems, you'd know about it by now, right? Because you'd look at the database of all the long-term...
Here's the weasel move right here, the database.
...problems. What's the name of that database? I'm forgetting. What's the name of the database?
There isn't. Spoiler alert.
Where they collect all of the long-term problems. And not the VAERS, because the VAERS is more of a short-term problem. But what's the name of the database where they collect...
I'll save you a few minutes of him playing stupid. Let's see.
I mean, we all know that. They do extensive testing on vaccinations. But which database is it where they look at not only the one vaccination, but the combination? Where they test, what if we give you 3 different vaccinations that are all required, but we give them about the same time and you're 6 years old?
This is about 1.5 times speed. He still talks like a snail.
Or whatever age. But which database is that in? None, right?
There it is.
Database. So your biggest assumption
Here it
is that we know the risks of those other vaccinations. We don't.
Okay, you got that? We don't know how dangerous actions in your past have been. Therefore, you might as well take another action with an unknown danger. That's his literal argument. And then he congratulates himself here at the end.
Again, that if you find out my assumption is wrong, and there is some kind of magic database, I don't think so.
Magic
but if there is,
now. Magic database. Not scientific.
All right. Now, when we're talking about vaccine persuasion, you convinced me to be more skeptical. All right, that's it for today. I just wanted to see if I would change any minds. It looks like some of you did change your minds.
Yep, he did this to change your mind, by the by. No way to back out. So besides repeating himself 5 times every time he makes a point, and proudly making the case that he's changing people's minds to go from no jab to jab, like that was the point of all that, despite all the obfuscation and smoke and mirrors, let's take a look at this argument, because arguments follow a form. If you've ever taken symbolic logic, which I highly recommend if you haven't, you can generalize an argument form. So what he said here, and he made a point, there's no long-term database, like what's the effect of your MMR when you're 70? Well, that would be very hard to pinpoint because by the time you're 70, you have a lot of other conditions, and you can't have a control group and a test group and look at things 50 years down the line. But we do have the VAERS, and that is the database. Not the magic database, that's the database. But his case is you've had, and I'm going to sum it up in 30 seconds instead of 45 minutes, you've had various shots throughout your life in which you didn't know the long-term risks. Here is a new shot that you don't know the long-term risks. Therefore, take the new shot. Okay? Did you get that? That's the actual argument. You've had various behaviors with an unknown level of risk. Therefore, you should engage in a new behavior with an unknown level of risk. But it does carry risk, whether it's long-term or short-term or whatever. Now, set aside the fact that many people's concerns about this current injection aren't about the long-term risk. One of the things to realize here is getting the jab or not jab, that's a zero-sum game. You either get it or you don't get it, right? There's no partial step. There's no halfway step. And so just being able to say, well, you don't know the long-term effects, therefore do it anyway. You see, you can't dip a toe in the water. You either take the plunge or you don't take the plunge. Let me sum up maybe his argument in a way that's a little clearer, because following that argument form, that logical form that he laid out, say I hand you a revolver and I say, we're going to play Russian roulette for money, but I'm not going to tell you how many rounds are in the chamber. I'm going to tell you, yes, this revolver has a round in the chamber or more. I'm not going to tell you how many. And you say, oh yeah, I'll play Russian roulette. So you spin the wheel and you pull the trigger 3 times. Nothing happens. You win a bunch of money. Scott Adams' argument would be, well, since you don't know the risk you just took by pulling that trigger 3 times, you should pull the trigger 1 more time, because you didn't know the risk the last 3 times and yet you did it. Now, you either get a reaction or you don't get a reaction, right? There's either a round in that chamber when you pull the trigger or there isn't, but you're taking an additional risk. Like, it's a fallacious way of arguing. It's like saying I'm on, to use a different example, gambling, it's like I'm on a hot streak. I flipped a coin and it's come up heads 5 times in a row. What's the odds of it coming up heads on your next chance? Well, it's still 50-50. It's 50-50 every single time. Those past 5 coin flips have no bearing on the outcome of your current coin flip. Just like whatever the odds were on your past injections have no bearing on the current injection odds, which we don't know. It's fair to say we don't know, but if you're going to play that game, we can just go full Socrates and say the ultimate of wisdom is knowing you know nothing. Like, that's not an argument either, or at least not one that can inform a real-world decision. Now, I'm not going to tell you what you should do or anything, but I am going to tell you this is a way to think about it that actually stays within the realm of logic. You have a condition out there where across all ages and comorbidities, the survival rate is roughly 100%. It's 99 out of 100. Yes, there are people who have lost their lives, no denying it, but it's very, very small, okay? Now there is a procedure, an injection, that has the ability to potentially protect you from that 1% really bad outcome. But that procedure also carries a risk, and that risk is unknown, but we have some evidence that it can be pretty bad. So you have a 99% chance of survival, and then you have a treatment that has unknown and unknowable risks. But there is risks there. So you see, by getting that injection, you are taking another risk. It's like in Russian roulette, pulling that trigger 1 additional time. An unknown risk, you may believe it's small enough to warrant going and getting it anyway, and that's your decision. But you see, every time you take an action, you are stacking risk. Now, that's the actual reasonable way to look at the statistics. 99 out of 100% chance of survival, and a procedure you can take for protection that has its own risk built into it, but that risk is unknown. Well, that's a pretty shoddy argument. I think I've broken it down quite well here. And so when you get back to Scott Adams saying, those of you that are bad at critical thinking, if we someday learn it was a huge mistake, please don't tell me you knew, and that's the key word, all along. No, sir, I don't know, But there's a such thing as hedging your bets, as in like if you're investing. You may be betting on a big market rise, but you can buy some calls on the VIX in case the market collapses and the volatility explodes. And so you wouldn't layer risk upon risk upon risk with side effect upon side effect if the initial condition really isn't going to be that bad. And so I thought this hallucination was pretty funny, as there is getting to be more and more concerning evidence out there, and some of his followers called him out quite well also. Nunn says, "What's the threshold from suspect it's a mistake to know it's a mistake?" Very good. That's the crux of the whole thing. Aging Millennial says, "LOL, the same type of consequence-dodging statement could have been uttered by any person who's ever made a decision about anything ever." Yeah. Lee Sef gets one of the better jabs in. "So the ones who are bad at critical thinking will be the ones who guessed right?" Exactly, because the only way Scott Adams could be wrong and you could be right is that it was just a 50-50 shot and you guessed correctly. Joe Papadon essentially makes my point. The thing is, even if it's not some huge mistake, the numbers were clear. It's a non-issue for 99 out of 100 people, and the V doesn't stop transmission, so you're going to deal with it in some fashion sooner or later. It is also easily treatable. And it's funny, all these people that are merely guessing, who were willing to put their entire careers on the line, lose their jobs, who are much less financially secure than Scott. Boy, those people sure were willing to put an awful lot on the line over a guess. But of course, if you've been following along, there's been a lot of doctors, there's been a lot of evidence that's concerning all along the way, and that people have been posting and has been getting censored. Boy, that's not suspicious at all. And so I wanted to show you what a dishonest intellectual looks like. I wanted to show you what a poor argument looks like. Don't ever fall for someone that's trying to manipulate your emotions. And I hope that I've shown you how it is that Scott attempts to do that. There's been this cult of high IQ. I think it might have been started by Stefan Molyneux. Don't be impressed by high IQ. First of all, Scott is a former Mensa member. And these numbers are back of the napkin, but I think it's something like a 130 IQ is what's required to get into Mensa, and everyone goes, "Ooh, you're so smart." Well, I've scored at the top of every standardized test I've ever taken since kindergarten, and I'm telling you right now, don't be impressed by high IQ. A 130 is up there, but think of it in terms of height. It's equivalent to a man who is 6'3", or a woman who is 5'9". That's roughly the statistical unusualness of a 130 IQ. You don't see a guy who's 6'3" and go, "My God, you're the tallest person." Or a woman and you look, "Gosh, that woman's 5'9". Can you believe that? Worship her. Like a 130 IQ isn't impressive. Don't worry about it. Yeah, 6'3" seems pretty tall until that guy runs into a center for a basketball team that's 7'1". Like, true genius is a handful in a generation thing. Everything else is just, it's noise. Don't turn over your ability to rationalize and use common sense thinking to somebody else just because their IQ is somewhat higher. It doesn't make your emotions any different than the emotions of anyone else. High IQ is really not that impressive in the majority of cases. Now, wisdom is a whole different thing. You can develop wisdom, you can grow in wisdom, and since you can't change your IQ or your height, that's what I would argue is much more valuable. You can grow in wisdom. And that is what our friend Scott here is sorely lacking in.